What is freedom to you?
Your ability to do what you want, where you want, how you want to, with as least constraints as possible. I don't think there's this concept of absolute freedom unless you're maybe a monarch or a sovereign, that has full rule over a state. But just the ability to do and be and say whatever I want to do.
Before we get into everything, though, I always like to go back to the start with my guests, get more of a bit of an understanding about you, Luke, where you grew up, how it all began.
Come from Argentina, went to the United States at the age of 16, $200 in a suitcase. Like many immigrants, started pressure washing basketball courts, cleaning toilets, worked all sorts of odd jobs, made my way to university. University wasn't for me, ended up leaving, and then started working cubicle jobs. And while I was working those cubicle jobs, I started exploring and being told about different opportunities. So I would wait tables at nighttime. During the day, I would kind of have my normal 9-to-5 job or try to make my way up the ladder. And then I started hearing about making money online. And initially, it was because of the stock market. And I was exploring this thing that was called Robinhood. It had just come out, this new application on your phone that made stock trading fun. So a fellow server's like, hey, have you heard about Bitcoin? I was like, no, I haven't. It's like, oh, let me explore it. And I started doing some research, bought a couple of Bitcoin 2016, and that's where my journey began. That led me to e-commerce, where I learned how to make money online by building stores and selling what people would buy in person online, because I realized where people were spending most of their time, which was on the internet. So logically, you wanted to go where people are instead of kind of focusing on the old model of just retail. So when I started doing e-commerce, it wasn't necessarily popular, but at the same time, there was still taboo factors. So I was like, let me try it. Let me pioneer it. And it did well. We did 8 figures in e-commerce. And then I turned over all of my profits into crypto. That's kind of how I decided to play it, because I understand very much where crypto is going. I understand where Bitcoin is headed. And ever since I started buying Bitcoin at $588, my conviction only grew stronger and stronger because I've seen it mature. So understanding the nature of this asset class, I put my chips in this asset class known as crypto, and it went extremely well. And then I was like, hey, you know what? I've been able to build a lot of resources and been able to make a lot of money, but I'm missing an ingredient, which is people, right? I need a network. I need people around me that can empower me, that can help me, that can assist me with other things that are just money. Because if money's all you have, then you don't have much. So I was like, let me build a network. So I launched Capital Club, which is my organization right now, where it's focused on building an ecosystem designed for entrepreneurs and helping them, whether it's in connections, whether it's with resources or opportunity, to elevate in their entrepreneurial journey. So it's different aspects of it. And that's pretty much what I'm focused on nowadays. So full-time crypto, full-time making content, and just glitching through the matrix, bro.
How do you think crypto will be in the next 10 to 20 years?
I think crypto's only evolving, and it's evolving in a positive way. We just saw this week, I think, in fact, yesterday, that the entire kind of bank-to-bank transfers here in England had been completely stopped, right? Because you're dependent on a centralized server and on a centralized system, and if that thing fails, your entire system is compromised. So you now need technology that is decentralized, not decentralizing just opportunity, but decentralize the fact that problems and errors can take place and occur. And if you don't mitigate them, you can't expand. That's why technological advancement is important. When we look at money, money is merely a technological advancement. You look at coinage. When coinage was introduced, it was a better way of bartering, because if you wanted cows and I wanted water, right? What was the middle ground? There wasn't something that we could actually standardize. Precious metal standardized that. But then it was difficult to transport, and it was difficult to move. So we moved it to what? Bills. And now we're like, oh, well, we're too lazy with bills. Let me digitalize it. Well, now we're digitalizing it, right? It's the inevitable process in evolution of money. Who's going to be in control of it? So now you have different factions competing for what is going to be the digital money. And it's incredible to watch. So the question is, which digital money are you going to support? Are you going to support a decentralized ledger, a system that belongs to the people, or are you going to support the one that is run by the banks? That's why I basically practice what I preach. I don't keep money in the banks. I keep my money in my own possession, right? I keep my money under my own kind of management. I don't depend on a bank. When you deposit money into a bank, they don't keep it safe. They take that money, they invest it. The entire game is a scam. So once you understand basic financial literacy, you start comprehending these things and you realize all the billionaires and all the rich guys, they have Bitcoin. All of them. From Peter Thiel to Elon Musk to Chamath, like all these guys, they're like, hey, this is good. This is a good thing. Who's saying that it's bad? The fucking government? Biden? Like literally the people that are fucking you up. So you're not going to listen to them. You want to go to where the energy and the intention and the power lies. And the evolution of money is going to be, in my opinion, of the people. So I have to kind of fight for that. And Bitcoin happens to be one of those mediums of exchange, or at least one of the symbols that today we utilize to represent that. Is it going to be the future? Well, I would like to consider it, but Bitcoin can also be co-opted and psyoped by BlackRock. They have infinite liquidity, which means they could pretty much buy a large percentage of the supply and control the price of Bitcoin through the ETF. So I don't know where that lies, but I would like to consider that decentralized money is going to be something extremely important. So that's a brief understanding of what I think about crypto.
What do you think about BlackRock?
I mean, at the end of the day, whoever controls the printers controls the world, and they control the printers. I mean, if you look at who the Federal Reserve goes to and who countries go to in order to get funding or in order to get investment advice, it's BlackRock. And that's just, they're the best player in the game. And it is what it is. You can be mad at it, or you can just realize how they're playing and realize that you're on the same chessboard. So when, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, says, hey, I like Bitcoin and I like it a lot, you better be fucking listening because he sees something. So you either play with the players or you get played. And I just look at these individuals and I understand their nature. They don't give a fuck about me. Why should they? Like, honestly, they don't know me.
Nobody gives a fuck about anyone.
Exactly. So when you look at that perspective, I'm like, okay, it's player versus player in that sense, because they're playing certain games, but simultaneously they also control the news, which means they're narratives. So you need to understand how they're playing. And once you open up your eyes, you can see some patterns. And through pattern recognition, you can identify where the world's headed. That's why you can see crypto cycles, ebbs and flows. You can see the ebbs and flows in the markets, and you can understand trends by understanding people, by understanding company, by understanding what they stand for. And you align all these things together and you can make a comprehensive thesis.
How was family life?
Family life is great. Very blessed. My parents, phenomenal people, took care of us. So nothing to complain about. Thankfully, they put me through English school in Argentina, which was fucking ruthless because you would have English school in the morning and then you would have Spanish school in the afternoon. So that was ruthless, but it allowed me to learn my English skills, and here we are today. So shout out to my parents. And then, my girl, phenomenal, been with me for 10 years. And she and I have a great relationship, gives me the freedom, the ability to also travel and work remotely, which is important. So it's great.
How important is it to have a good woman by your side?
2 is always better than 1. And the thing is, what people don't realize is in a relationship, you're not just investing time. You're investing energy and resources into a relationship. A relationship is an investment. So you have to ask yourself, the people that you're spending time with, not just a relationship like a woman, but it can be a relationship in general with friends. It can be with business partners. You're investing time and resources into these things. So the question is, are you going to go the distance? And you want to look for 2 factors when it comes to relationships that you want long-term. One is loyalty and longevity, right? Loyalty is, are they going to stick through you, through the tough? And do they have your best intent in mind? And you know where that lies. And then the second one is going to be your longevity. Do people want to go with you far enough? Because if they're short-sighted, but they have good intentions, well, they're not going to necessarily be with you throughout the entire phase. If they want to go the distance, but they're going to cave, right, under pressure, then you don't want that situation. So I'm looking for those characteristics. And when I find those characteristics, I'm like, okay, I'm going to invest my time, my energy, my attention into this person, and we're going to grow together. So 1, it's phenomenal, to have somebody that you grow with, especially, she was driving me my girl used to drive me to work because I didn't have a car. So coming from a place where I had nothing and we built a relationship from that perspective, it also gives me the ability to go back home and not have my guard up of, hey, does this person have certain intentions, or does this person have my best interest? No, because that person's been around for the extended period of time. And I also value these things. So longevity to me is key. Loyalty to me is key. And these two collectively, when you find these traits, you want to invest into these people. But for my relationship, yeah, it's super key.
What age did you, how much was crypto when, what was it, 2016, 2018?
2016, Bitcoin was 588, 2016. Yeah, and then you had the bull run of 2017, 2018. That was the first bull run where altcoins really took off, where you saw Cardano go from a penny to $1.60, 160x return in the span of a couple weeks. It was madness. But I round tripped my entire bag during that bull run because, I fell into the entire, hey, everybody hold the bags, follow the revolution. And then we got dumped on by all the venture capital that was playing the game. So you just get smarter through the cycles. This is my third cycle in crypto. So I'm definitely playing the game a little bit different than I used to.
What patterns are you talking about? Patterns that's been here for hundreds of years, thousands of years, millions of years. We look at the thousands of years, the same patterns every 10 years, 20 years with new plagues, new destruction, new wars, more money. Everything's greed. What patterns do you see? Do you see patterns of life, or patterns what's going to happen to then what to invest into, or just patterns of...
Do you want me to give you a crazy pattern?
Yeah, let's go.
I'll give you a crazy pattern that I've basically been deciphering probably over the last year or two. And it has to do with how Central America and South America is taking a new form. So if you look at World War I and World War II, prior to that, we had the Spanish flu, right? And so we have a Spanish flu, we have a swap of currency because we have the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 get introduced. Then we have 2 world wars. And then we have basically this fight against what? Communism, right? We had the fight against drugs, the fight against terror, but back then it was the fight against communism. So what happened? We saw a massive overthrow in South America and the installment of right-wing dictators and right-wing governments like we're seeing now. But the question is why? Now, when you begin to look at how the IMF works, which is the International Monetary Fund, they are what the economic hitman, a book that I read, he used to be one of these jackals for the IMF that would go and do broker deals with governments, loan them money in exchange for what? Resources and assets and collateralized land and things of this nature. So what would take place? A disaster would roll around, natural disaster or planned disaster, either one. Natural coup or planned coup, either one. Point is, something would take place where the government would need money or resources. The IMF would come in and say, hey, here's a relief package. But attached to the relief package, you have stipulation A, B, C, D, massive interest. And obviously, the IMF can never default. They can never default. So what do they have to do? They have to overthrow. So what you do is you take a country into a massive pattern of debt. You can see it in Argentina with left-wing governments taking and basically stealing everything for about 50 years. The country now is in massive debt. And now you have, within, 30 days, a right-wing government installed, all the deficits removed, right? So all the debt instantly removed, so that now you can pay back to the IMF the debt. So you're seeing a cycle, a 100-year loop cycle of these big entities that control money and money supply coming into disaster and offering relief, quote unquote. And through that relief, being able to nationalize and control a country, which is crazy. So now you're going to see through South America, pretty much all the countries adopt a right-wing perspective, which initially might become benevolent. It'll be a good kind of transition, but eventually you're going to see a big clasp down of right-wing push to pay off any sort of debts and to nationalize assets. It's taking place. That's why you see the selling off in Argentina, for example, of the Argentine Airlines, which was a nationalized asset, or the YPF, which is the gas station that belonged to the government. They're selling all these things to private companies, which is fine. But the point is, these are different patterns that when you begin to realize, you can identify. So now Argentina is a great investment opportunity because they're about to be in surplus. They're about to start making money again. Is it risky? Yeah, but is it a 10-year play, 20-year play? For sure. So you'll be seeing me buy some land in Patagonia and get a ranch. Maybe not like you up in Scotland, but that's the perspective, bro.
Everything's a risk.
Yeah, everything's a risk. So different pattern recognitions. You can talk about Elon Musk how he's building an alternative system. So you have the social media communication platform X, you have the banking solution, which will now be integrated on X, you have the satellites, you have Neuralink, you have Tesla. The guy has all the data to basically build an alternative system, which is what he's doing. An alternative system to what? To the government system. So you have power charging, which is controlled by Elon. You have the communication, which is controlled by Elon. You have the internet, Starlink, which is controlled by Elon. You have the spaceships. You have Neuralink, which is going to be the implant. You have, I think it's Gronk, which is the AI. So all these things together collectively put you into a supervillain situation or a Lex Luthor type character for an alternative system. So we'll be seeing a fusion or a complete anarchic separatist kind of perspective between government and private industry. Now they collude a lot, right? Now they collude a lot, which is what we call techno-feudalism. You know, when basically Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or any of these social media guys, they operate as like hidden kings and hidden like monarchs because they control the social platforms. So it's what we call technocratic state and what we call techno-feudalism. Feudalism, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it was so feudalism back in the day was when a king would own a lot of land and the peasants would come and they would work on the land for free in exchange for food. But the feudal lords own the property. So they own the place of commerce. Therefore, even though they weren't the government, they were still in control. Today, we have the same thing taking place, but it's technologically like you could literally censor somebody to death, right? Until we had these alternative systems come into be. So we see the collusion of government and we see the collusion of corporations take place. I don't know as if technology advances, if we kind of go more towards just relying on companies instead of just relying on government, or if these things marry into one super monster that with AI kind of fucks us all up. We'll see, but the best we can do is level up and
prepare yourself. What do you think of AI? I interviewed a man called Mo Godat. He worked with Google. He says AI is going to be 1 billion times smarter than any human on the planet within the next 5 to 10 years.
I agree. I don't think we understand what is happening. I don't understand. You can process one thought, maybe 2 thoughts at once. Dude, this thing is running and processing everything at the same time. You're going to see the emergence of people that worship these AIs. You're going to see people marry the AIs. You're going to see people fuse with the AIs. It's going to be pretty crazy. So you're going to see the battle of the chipped versus the unchipped take place, which is going to be taking place. I mean, if Neuralink actually works and you actually have the ability to instill learning behavior patterns and you can accelerate learning, you can basically turn somebody into a supercomputer. They'll outcompete anybody in the marketplace. So you might be forced into it, right? Because if not, you're going to be jobless. So what are you going to do? It's a crazy situation that we're in. I don't see that kind of in our necessary future, but it might be for our kids or the generations to come. But once again, technology is advancing so quick, we don't really comprehend it. It's fast. It's fast.
They're trying to microchip the brain now as well. So this is what they say. They get out first, get the mobile phones. People queue for 2 nights, 3 nights to get the new iPhone. So as soon as they bring the new chip out, microchip, people are getting chipped in Sweden. So people are getting microchipped now. Now you've got metaverse. People are getting into there's different levels of this universe. I believe in my own perspective because I've interviewed enough people to try and get an understanding of it. And basically when you break it all down, nobody actually knows what the fuck is going on. We're just speaking from the knowledge that we gather through books, documentaries, other people we come across. But when you actually break it all down, what is the true source? What do you think the true source is for a human being?
Intuition. I think your ability to perceive how the things around you are working. You're not going to know everything, right? And also you're not necessarily going to place your belief system into what somebody else has told you. You have to experience it for yourself. So it has to do with experience. It has to do with going through the process of learning truth, because people are like, oh, like, what do you believe in? Well, if you believe in something, it means that you have no certainty of it, but you need to know things. There's a verse in the Bible that says you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. Not you shall believe in some white man with a beard, in heaven that will, no, it says you shall know the truth. So the question is, how do you know the truth? Well, you need to be paying attention. You need to be aware. You need to be observant. You need to have open ears, and you have humility. People act like, and they walk around like they know shit, like that they have the answers. Well, if you have the answers, then truth will never reveal itself to you. So very much walking with humility and like a student. I think that that's the biggest learning place. The biggest learning place to seek for truth is when you position yourself and being like, hey, I don't know anything. Let the universe reveal itself to me. And it does. And these mysteries, some people like to give it names and characteristics and attributes, but once again, we all experience it differently.
What do you think humans are? What do you think we are?
I think we're experiencing this like 3-dimensional realm, but our consciousness will potentially be more expanded outside of our physical limitations once we die.
What about the creator? Do you think someone created us?
Absolutely. 100%. Intelligent design makes absolute sense.
Could we be machines? Could we be avatars? Could we already be robotic?
Robotic.
Because you look at the way the central nervous system is, how the brain functions, how the organs function. Something's created that. And if you go back thousands of years of with some of the tombs and pyramids, some people say they were created by lasers. And
there's definitely design. There's definitely design attributed to it. And it's interesting you say that because, for example, when we talk about like civilizations that have been wiped out, this is obvious. Civilizations have been wiped out. I just spent a month in Italy looking at the ruins of Pompeii. They say 80% of Pompeii is still under the ashes. So like all these things about history that we have no idea about, no context whatsoever. People are like, oh yeah, well, why is it that we don't have remnants of plastic from back in the day? I was like, well, maybe they were just so intelligent and so intellectually superior that they realized that plastic wasn't something that they should utilize. Like plastic is something that's fucking us up. So I think that right now we are in a phase of rediscovering humanity. I think we're potentially in the dark ages still of knowledge of how we operate and what our fullest capabilities and human potential is. If you were born, let's say you were in your people, right? Were born into slavery for another nation. And you were in a 600 or 700 year slavery period. Let's say you're born in year 300 of slavery. You're born into that. You have no context of freedom. You don't understand it. It's not been taught to you. You haven't been nurtured under it. It's not in your peripherals. You don't understand it. You may crave it, but you don't understand it because you were born a slave. We were born slaves. Look at the school system. Look at the music. Look at the food. Look at the propaganda. Look at the television. They're all tools of slavery, mass slavery. So when you look at all these things and you align it, you're like, whoa, hold a minute. Are they telling me that I'm free, but I'm not? Right? Are they telling me that I have free will, that I can act and choose what I want, but I'm persuaded by all these things around me that create a false identity? We were talking about everything's an illusion. You're sold that this is valuable. You're sold that this is valuable. You're sold that things are real. Right? These are beliefs. So what if we've been born into this belief system that we're free, but you look at the byproduct of our existence and we're at 10% capacity of our potential, which means what? Which means it's not that the energy isn't being expended, it's that the energy is going into somebody else's pocket, because we look at money different than rich people look at money. Rich people don't look at money like monetary units. Rich people look at money like energy, because you take that money and you pay somebody for what? Their time and their labor. That labor is energy. Everything is quantified in energy units. So rich people understand that. So they'll give you fake imaginary paper in exchange for what? Your lifespan. That's the game. So if you print the money, you get infinite lifespan that you can play with. That's why you can fund infinite wars. That's why you can fund infinite construction. That's why you can fund infinite slavery, because you can pay people. That's why we're basically debt slaves. So the entire premise of where we currently stand in society is that we need to wake up as a collective consciousness that you aren't what people have told you that you are. You don't need to work a 9 to 5 in order to be validated. You don't need to work for a big company. Yes, making a ton of money is great, but dude, you can make $5,000 a month and live with total freedom. I was happy when I was making $10,000 a month, dude. I had less responsibilities, less problems than I fucking do now. but I've been limited and you can't make $10,000 a month. No, well, you need a college degree. Oh, well, you need to do this. These are all limitations, slave belief systems that have been cast upon us on how we're supposed to operate. And once you break free from that illusion, you begin to realize that you can live life on your own terms.